Some people enter your life through the front door, announced, expected, welcomed with open arms and a casserole dish from the neighbors. Others arrive sideways, through circumstances nobody planned, slipping into the frame of your existence through a door you didn't even know was there. Elliot Navarro arrived through my mother's happiness. And I, for the record, had no idea what to do with him. My name is Noah Calloway, 25 years old. Graphic designer, amateur-bred baker, dedicated overthinker, and as of 8 months ago, the reluctant possessor of a stepbrother I had never asked for, never anticipated, and absolutely could not stop thinking about. Let me back up. My mother, Patricia Calloway, is one of those people who seems to generate warmth the way the sun generates light, naturally, constantly, without apparent effort. She raised me alone after my father left when I was 11, and she did it with such quiet dignity and consistent love that I grew up thinking single parenthood looked easy, which I now understand was simply a testament to how good she was at it. She worked as an interior decorator, laughed too loudly at her own jokes, made the best lemon cake in the Northern Hemisphere, and had, for as long as I could remember, deserved someone who truly saw her. She found that someone in Robert Navarro. He came into her life 3 years ago through a mutual friend's dinner party, and within 6 months I could see it, the specific way she looked at her phone when he texted, the way her posture changed when he walked into a room, the way she laughed differently around him. Freer, like a woman who had been holding her breath for a long time and had finally remembered it was allowed to let it go. I liked Robert, genuinely. He was steady and kind, with the patient energy of someone who had
We're
learned
so
through
happy to have you
experience not
both
to take
here.
good things for granted.
Yes,
He
it's
was a chef.
truly
He
a
owned a
special
small but
evening.
well-regarded Italian
Thank you for
restaurant on
having
the east
us.
side of the
It
city.
means a lot to
And
be
he had
here.
the specific quality that serious cooks sometimes develop, an attention to detail that extended beyond food, a care for how things were put together that made every environment he inhabited feel slightly more considered. They married 18 months after they met. Small ceremony, immediate family only, a Sunday afternoon in my mother's backyard with fairy lights and Robert's homemade pasta and my grandmother crying
So,
into
what
a
brings you to this
handkerchief
part of
she'd
town?
had since the 80s.
Just passing through, really.
And that
Heard
was
good
how
things.
Elliot Navarro
Yeah?
became,
From who?
technically, my stepbrother.
A friend. You seem to know the
The
area
first
well.
time
You
I
could
met
say
him
that.
properly was
I know
3
I've been
months
thinking about
before
this
the
a lot
wedding,
lately.
at a family dinner
People get so
Robert
caught up in
organized at
trends
his
that what
restaurant.
really matters
I'd
is
seen a
authenticity
photograph,
and
dark
real
hair,
connection.
brown eyes,
That's my genuine
age,
opinion
lived
on
in
it.
Portland, apparently worked in landscape architecture, but photographs are outlines. They give you shape without substance. Elliot in person was something photographs could not have prepared me for. He was 26, taller than I'd expected, with the kind of build that suggested someone who worked physically and didn't particularly think about it. Dark hair worn a little long, pushed back from his face. Brown eyes that were lighter than they appeared in photographs, amber in certain lights, the color of good whiskey held up to a window. He had his father's patience in his face,
Beautiful
but
morning for a
something
walk.
else underneath it,
Yeah, beats
something
being stuck
quicker
inside.
and more
This coffee's
private that I
perfect.
noticed
Couldn't agree
and then
more.
immediately told
How's your week
myself
been?
I had not
Busy,
noticed.
but good. You?
He shook my hand at the restaurant entrance and said, "So you're Noah, my dad talks about you constantly." "He does," I said, which was not a particularly interesting response but was what came out. "Says you're the only person who actually reads the menu before ordering. He considers that a mark of character." I laughed before I could decide whether to. That's either a compliment or an indictment. With my dad, those are usually the same thing. He smiled, a real one, not a social one, and something in
This
the
light is
architecture of the
perfect for
evening
sketching.
rearranged itself
Yeah, it's
in a
nice and
way I
warm.
didn't fully
What are you
register
working
until
on?
much later.
Just some
We
ideas.
had dinner, it was
I'd love
fine,
to see.
good even. He was easy to talk to, which I hadn't expected, and had opinions about things in a way that was confident without being exhausting. We disagreed about one film and agreed about a book, and discovered we had been at the same concert 3 years ago without
This
knowing
captures
it,
the
which
energy
felt
I've been
like the kind of
chasing.
coincidence that means
The
something
way these
even when it
lines
means
flow
nothing.
are just alive.
He went back to Portland the
And
next
this one,
morning. The
it
wedding
evolved
came
from a
and
simple
went.
doodle.
I smiled in the
And
photographs
that's when I
and meant it.
realized
And
I had to
Elliot
make
and
a
I
change.
became, by the
I
mathematics
never
of our
thought I'd
parents'
have the
love,
courage to do it,
family in the technical sense, in the
but
legal
it turned out to
document
be the
sense,
best
in the
decision.
way that requires a longer
That
explanation
scene
at
with the
parties
bridge
when
was
someone
intense.
asks how you know each
Yeah,
other.
and the score really
I
built the
told
tension.
myself that was all it was.
It reminded me of that trip
I
we
told
took,
myself that for 5
the one
months.
with the unexpected
Then
storm.
came January and
I've
Robert's
thought
restaurant
about
had
this
a pipe
carefully,
burst, and my mother
and I
suggested, with
believe
the
this is
particular
maybe the
breezy
best way
certainty of a
forward.
woman who does not anticipate
We have to
complications,
be
that
prepared for
Elliot
the
come
chest.
stay with them while his contract in Portland wrapped up and he figured out his next move. The Portland firm had restructured. He needed a few weeks, maybe 2 months. The house had a guest room. And because my own apartment building had a heating system that had chosen January to stage what felt like a personal protest against winter, was also staying in my childhood bedroom for 3 weeks while the repairs were sorted. So there we were, two adult men in their mid-20s, technically stepbrothers for 5 months, sharing a family home for the first time,
I've been wanting to
navigating
talk.
the
It's been on
specific
my mind.
awkwardness of
I'm
intimacy
here for
with
you.
someone
What's
who
going
is
on?
supposed to
It's
feel
about
like
us.
family and
I think
doesn't
we need
feel
to be
like
more
anything
open.
you have language
I agree.
for.
Let's keep
The
talking.
kitchen was where it started.
Sí,
I
te
should have
escucho.
expected it in retrospect. Robert was a
No te
professional
preocupes, todo
chef
está
and had
bien.
passed his relationship with
Hablamos
cooking to
luego.
Elliot the way
Adiós.
some fathers pass down tools or stories. Elliot cooked the way some people breathe, without performance, without ceremony, just the natural extension of someone moving through the world and feeding it. He was in the kitchen every morning before I was awake, and every morning I came downstairs to find the coffee already made and something on the counter, fruit sliced, toast cooling, eggs in a pan, with no announcement or expectation. I asked him about it on the third morning. "You don't have to do this," I said, gesturing at the breakfast that had appeared again without being requested. He looked up from the stove, spatula in hand. "I know." "Then why?" "Because I'm up anyway and it takes 4 extra minutes." He looked at me with that expression I was learning to catalog, the one that was direct without being challenging, the one that offered something without demanding anything back. "Is it bothering you?" "No," I said truthfully, "it's just unexpected." "Good unexpected or bad unexpected?" I sat down at the kitchen island. "Good," I said, "definitely good." He nodded and went back to the stove, and I sat in the warm kitchen with the early January light coming through the
The
window
key
and
is to
watched
stir
him
in
cook with the
slow, gentle circles.
unself-conscious
See?
fluency of
Like
someone
this?
entirely at home in
Yes, perfect.
themselves.
You're natural.
And I thought,
Thanks.
this is a
Feels right.
problem.
You're
Not
doing great.
because of who he was in relation to me in the technical family structure sense. I want to be clear about that because the specifics matter. We were adults who had met as adults. We had no shared childhood, no
All right, try
formative
this
years
one.
under the
I think it's
same roof,
perfect.
no history of
Come on, be
being
honest.
siblings
Does it
in
need
any
anything?
meaningful sense of the word.
See?
We were two people
I
whose
told you it was
parents
good.
had found each other late in life, bound by paperwork and a shared last name at holidays and a genuine but uncomplicated mutual fondness for Robert, who was a good man. The problem was simpler and more human than family structure. The problem was that I
That's
was
incredible.
gay, quietly,
Yeah,
carefully,
we
not everyone
nailed
knows
it.
gay, and
Best one
Elliot
yet.
Navarro, standing at my
Definitely.
mother's stove making
great
eggs
team.
at 7 in the morning in a faded gray Henley, was the most naturally compelling person I had encountered in recent memory, and I was going to have to live in the same house as him for potentially 2 months. That was the problem. The secret revealed itself on a Wednesday. I came home early from a client meeting that had ended unexpectedly, let myself in through the back door, and found Elliot in the kitchen, not unusual, but also found him on the phone, his back to the door, his voice low and careful in the way people's voices get when they're having a conversation
I
they
need you to
consider
know I'm being
private.
honest.
"I know,"
I've been
he was
reflecting on
saying,
everything,
"I know it's complicated,
and I
but
want to
can't
make things
keep-
right
Marcus,
between
I
us.
can't keep pretending it's fine when it isn't." A pause. "I'm not angry at you, I just need some time to figure out where I am, who I am, maybe, I don't know." He turned and saw me. The expression on his face in that moment, the specific sequence of emotions that crossed it in about 2 seconds, is something I've thought about many times since. First surprise, then something that looked like exposure, like being caught mid-undress. Then very quickly, something that was almost relief, as if being seen was frightening and also, underneath the fright, something he'd been quietly needing. "I have to go," he said into the phone. He lowered it. We looked at each other across the kitchen. "I'm sorry," I said. "The meeting ended early. I didn't mean to." "It's fine," he said. His voice was even. "It was just a call." "I didn't hear anything," I said. We both knew that was not entirely true. He set the phone on the counter and turned back to whatever he'd been preparing, some kind of sauce, simmering low on the back burner. He stirred it, said nothing. The kitchen filled with the smell of garlic and tomatoes and the particular silence of two people deciding simultaneously whether to keep pretending. "Elliot," I said finally. "Yeah. Are you okay?" He was quiet for a moment, then
I
he
know
said,
things have been
without
tough.
turning
How
around,
are you,
"I'm
really?"
figuring some things out,
I'm
it's
okay,
fine."
Mom. Just needed some time.
"Okay," I said,
I'm
"but if
always
you
here
ever
for
want
you.
to not figure them
I
out
know.
alone."
Thanks, Mom.
He turned then. His amber eyes
I've been
found
waiting for
mine
you.
across the kitchen, and what I
It's
saw
so
in
good
them
to
was
see you,
something I
son.
recognized with a recognition that went
You're worth the
beyond the
wait.
conscious mind, the specific look of someone carrying a truth they are not sure they're allowed to put down. I'll keep that in mind, he said quietly. I nodded. I went upstairs, and I sat on the edge of
I'm
my
here for
childhood
you,
bed and thought about
always.
a man in a gray Henley
We'll get through
stirring
this
sauce at a
together.
stove and the way
I
his
love
voice
you.
had sounded on the phone and the look in his eyes when he turned around.
It's been a while.
And I thought
How have
something
you
is
been?
happening here.
I've been
I
good,
don't know
just
what it is
busy.
yet, but
And you?
something is happening.
Same here.
A family
But
dinner,
nights like this
a
make it
shared
worthwhile.
kitchen,
They
a
really
phone
do.
call I wasn't supposed
I
to
found
hear.
them.
In
They're
stories,
safe.
the beginning
been
always looks
waiting for
smaller
you.
than it is, a door that doesn't seem significant until you realize much later that everything after it was different. I was
I feel so
standing at
much
that
lighter
door,
now.
I just didn't know it yet. The week after the phone call, something shifted between us, not dramatically, not with any announcement, but in the way that
I'm
small
proud of you,
things
son.
shift when
Truly.
two people have seen each
Thanks,
other
Dad.
more
That means a
clearly
lot.
than they intended
Just
to,
wanted you to
and
know.
neither of them has pretended
I
otherwise.
appreciate it. Really.
He still made coffee every morning, but now he made 2 cups from the start and set mine on the counter with the oat milk already added, which I had mentioned exactly once in passing 10 days earlier. The specificity of that memory,
Let me explain
the
why
fact
this
that
is
he
so
held
exciting.
onto it and
It's not
applied
just
it
the idea
quietly
itself,
without
but the
drawing
potential it
attention to the
unlocks for
gesture,
all of us.
said something I couldn't
Imagine the
quite name, but
possibilities. We can
certainly
build something
feel.
truly. That's the heart of
I
it,
started
and I
coming
can't wait to dive
downstairs
deeper.
earlier. Not because I planned to or not consciously anyway. My body just started waking up earlier, which is the kind of thing bodies do when there is somewhere they want to be that the mind hasn't officially approved yet. I would find him at the stove or at the kitchen island with his
Cold one
sketchbook
tonight?
landscape plans spread
Yeah,
across
you
the
can
marble,
see it in our
a
breath.
pencil behind his ear and his coffee
Look at the
going
lights
cold
coming on.
beside him because he'd
Beautiful
gotten
time of
absorbed
day.
in whatever he was working on.
We
I
need to talk
started
about
bringing
this
his
now.
coffee to him when it
All right,
went cold,
what is it? It's
refilling
about
it
the
without
deal.
being
It
asked.
could fall apart.
We
What?
didn't talk about
How?
the phone call, not
The terms
directly,
changed.
but
We
we
need a
started
new plan.
talking about other things.
I
the
wanna
way
be
you
honest
do
with
when
you.
two people have moved
This is
past
something
the
I've thought
surface
about
level,
carefully.
and neither of them wants to go back.
And
but
it's
neither
not an
is
easy
ready to
decision,
name
but
what's
I
beneath it
believe
either.
it's the right
We
one.
talked about his work, the landscape
hope you can
project
see
he was
that.
developing, a public green space in a neighborhood that had been concrete for 40 years. He talked about it with a quiet passion that was different from his usual easy manner, more exposed,
I've weighed the
more
risks.
genuine.
We
He
proceed.
cared about it in a way
not
that
that
he
simple. What
clearly
about
didn't
fallout?
perform for most
We'll
people.
handle it. Trust me.
I told him about
All right.
my own work,
I'm
the
in.
design
Let's do it.
projects, the clients who had very specific visions that changed entirely once you showed them what their vision actually looked like. The particular satisfaction of a project that came together not because you forced it, but because you finally understood what it was trying to be. That's how it is with the plants sometimes, he said. You think you're designing a space, but really you're listening to it,
Beautiful
figuring
morning
out
for
what
a
it wants
walk.
to become.
It is.
That's a very
so
patient
peaceful.
way to work, I said.
Look at the buds on the
My
trees.
dad says patience is
Spring's
the
almost
only
here.
real ingredient. He smiled slightly. He means in cooking, but I think he means everything. I told Elliot I was gay on a Tuesday, 11 days after the phone call. Not because I'd planned to, not because I decided the time was right or rehearsed the words, or done any of the calculation I usually do before sharing that part of myself with someone new. It came out the way true
Look at
things
this lot.
sometimes do,
Barren,
sideways,
but full of
in the
potential.
middle of a conversation
My plans
about
will bring
something
life
else,
here,
as
a
if
community
my mouth
hub.
had decided to trust him
Imagine
before
the
my brain had
possibilities.
officially
This
signed
is
off.
just the beginning.
We were talking about
See
a
the
film
elevation
we'd both
here?
seen,
This
a
adjusts for
quiet,
the slope.
independent one.
Right.
A love
That solves
story
the
that was
drainage issue.
incidentally about
Exactly.
two men.
We can start
And I said
foundation work
something
next
about
week.
how rarely
Perfect.
those stories
Let's walk the
ended
perimeter.
happily. And he asked why I thought that was, and I said, probably because they're written by people who haven't lived them. And then the sentence was out and the weight of it was in the air and there was no retrieving it. He looked at me steadily.
What if we
written
curve
by
this
people
edge
who
here?
haven't lived
It
them,
softens the
he
overall
repeated.
look. Yeah, I see it. That could work
pause,
well.
not uncomfortable exactly,
Exactly.
but full.
Let's prototype it and see.
Are you, he stopped, started differently. Is that something you know from the inside? Yes, I said, simple, factual, the way I've learned to say it when I say it well. He nodded. His expression did not change in any of the ways I had at various points in my life been afraid expressions would change. It simply settled like something that had been slightly unclear had come into focus. Thank you for telling me, he said. It's not a big reveal, I said, it came up. It doesn't have to be a big reveal to matter, he said. And something in the way he said it, the specific weight he placed on the word matter, made me look at him more carefully. He was looking at his coffee cup. His hands
I'm so
were
glad
still
we
on
could
the
all be
counter.
here.
His jaw was
Me
doing
too.
the thing
This
I'd
feels
started
right.
to recognize.
It
a
really
subtle
does.
tightening
We
that
found our
meant
rhythm.
He was deciding something.
To family, found and
Noah,
made.
he said.
So I
Yeah.
told him, you can't just
Phone
wing
call
it.
You walked in on.
Oh,
He
that's
looked up. That
perfect.
was my ex.
Right?
We were together for
It
2
gets
years.
better.
He and
I
he
can't
held my
wait.
gaze with
Your
an effort that
chickles,
was
you're the
visible and
best.
quiet and
Only
brave.
for you.
He's why I left
Oh,
Portland.
I
Not
can't believe you
entirely
did
the job
that.
restructure was
That
real,
is
but
just
mostly.
too funny.
He paused. We
Your
wanted
reaction
different
is the
things.
best
He
part.
wanted to stay invisible, and
I can't
another
stop.
pause.
I wouldn't
tired
want you
of
to.
being invisible. The kitchen held the two of us and what had just been said, and the smell of the coffee going lukewarm between us. "I'm not out," he continued. "Not broadly. My dad doesn't know. I think he'd be okay, I think. But I've been waiting for the right time for 3 years, and I've started to wonder if I'm waiting for something that doesn't exist."
I
"The
wanted to
right
talk. It's
time,"
about
I
the
said
family.
carefully, "doesn't
I'm
usually
listening. Go on.
arrive. You kind of have to make
I
it."
think it's time for a change.
Is that what you did?
I'm with you. Whatever
Eventually,
you need.
after approximately 1,000 wrong
This is
attempts,
wonderful,
I looked
being
at him.
together like
"How
this.
long have
It
you
truly
known?"
is so much to be
"Since
thankful
I was
for.
20, he
Absolutely.
said. 6
family.
years of managing it quietly.
To us.
You. 19, I said. "So
To
I've
this
got a year on
moment,
you
to
in the managing
happiness,
quietly
and to
department."
all of you.
He
Cheers.
laughed, a real one, the kind that punctures tension rather than performing it. And something in the kitchen changed
place
again,
looks nice
the way
and
it
warm.
kept changing.
Yeah, perfect
each
night for it.
shift
Ready?
Opening a little more
Definitely.
space between
Let's go.
us.
Cool.
We
Smells
started
good already.
cooking together.
After you.
I don't know exactly when it became a thing.
Nice
It grew
night.
gradually,
Glad we
the way
stopped.
habits grow
Yeah,
through
it's
repetition
perfect out
and
here.
ease rather than decision.
Reminds me of home.
He would start something and I would
You
come
miss it?
downstairs and pick up whatever
Sometimes.
needed doing
But this
next.
is good.
And we'd work in the
Yeah, it
same
is.
space with the practice coordination.
I've thought
of
about
people
this
who
long and
learned
hard.
each other's rhythms.
What I say
He moved
now is
efficiently, and
entirely
moved
what I
more
mean.
cautiously.
This
And we
moment,
found, without
under the
trying,
spring
a
night
pace that
sky,
accommodated both.
feels like the right time to
He
share
taught
it.
me how to make his father's tomato
real.
sauce, the
You
proper
can trust
version,
this.
the one that took 3 hours and
Good
couldn't be
things
rushed.
are here to stay.
He was a patient teacher, which I'd
Let
expected,
them in.
but also oddly funny about it, which I hadn't, dry and specific, with a raised eyebrow when I rushed something and a genuine pleasure when something came out right. "Better," he said one evening, tasting from a spoon he then held toward me. I tasted it and agreed, and we looked at each other across the pot with the particular satisfaction of people who have made something good together, and I thought, this
That
is
was a
what I have been
wonderful
careful
meal.
about, this exact
It really
feeling.
was. We should do this more
One
often.
evening, a Friday,
I'm glad we
2
could
and a
all
half
be here.
weeks into sharing the
Me
house,
too.
we were
Feels
finishing
perfect.
the dishes
I
after
love
dinner.
these
My
nights. It
mother
feels
and
like
Robert
home.
having gone
It's
to
the
see a
company that
film,
makes it
and the
special.
house
The
quiet
food is
around us,
amazing,
and he said,
too.
without
And the
looking up from
conversation.
the sink,
It's perfect.
To
"Can
many
I
more.
ask you something
Cheers to
personal?"
that. Definitely.
"You've already told me
It's
about
so
your
good to be
ex,"
here
I
with
said.
you all.
"Personal is relative at this point."
It feels so
He smiled at the sink.
To us,
"Fair."
then.
He rinsed a pan, set it down.
To us.
Is there someone for you right now, anyone?" I dried a plate. "No, there was someone for about 8 months last year. It ended because," I considered, "because I wasn't fully present in it. I was so busy managing everything around the relationship that I never quite let myself be inside it." Managing what? Who knew what it looked like, whether it was the right time to be visible? I set the plate down. I kept waiting until conditions were perfect before I let myself actually feel it, and by the time I looked up, he'd moved on. I paused. I don't think I blamed him. Elliot was quiet for a moment. Then, I did something similar, different version of the same mistake. He dried his hands on the dish towel, turned to face me, leaning against the counter, waiting for conditions to be perfect. "What did you learn from it?" I asked. He looked at me. The kitchen light was warm and low, the way it gets in the evening when the overhead is off and only the under cabinet strips are on. And in that light, his amber eyes were more amber than usual, and the expression in them was one I had been cataloging for weeks without letting myself name what I was cataloging. "That the waiting is the waste," he said quietly. "That whatever you're protecting by waiting usually costs more than what you'd risk by not waiting." The dish towel was still in his hands, the sink was quiet, outside a car passed. "Elliot," I said. "Yeah. I need to ask you something, and I need you to tell me the truth." "Okay." I took a breath. "This thing that's been building in this kitchen for 3 weeks, I'm not imagining it, am I?" He held my gaze, he was very still. "No," he said, "you're
We're
not
so happy to
imagining
have
it.
you both here.
And you feel it
Yes,
too."
it's truly a
"Yes," he
special
said
evening.
quietly, completely.
Thank you for having us.
The kitchen
It means
held
a lot
that
to
word,
be here.
yes, small and enormous at the same time. "We should probably talk about this," I said. "We probably should," he agreed. "But Noah," he pushed off from the counter slightly, not toward me but toward something, some decision he was making in real time. "Before we talk about it, can we just acknowledge that it's real, without immediately putting it in a box or adding conditions to it?"
So, what
I
brings you to this part of
understood what
town?
he was asking.
Just
He
passing
was
through, really.
asking to let
Heard good
something be
things.
true
Yeah?
before we
From
started
who?
managing it.
A
Before
friend
the
who seemed to know
strategy
the
and the
area well.
caution
You
and
could
the
say that.
careful architecture.
I know I've
we
been thinking
both
about this a lot
apparently
lately.
had a habit of
People get
building
so caught
around
up in
things
trends that
mattered.
what really matters is
"Yes," I said,
authenticity
"we can
and
do
real
that."
connection.
He
That's my
nodded.
genuine
He set
opinion
the
on it.
dish towel down. And for a long moment we stood in the warm kitchen light, two people who had been quietly honest with each other in ways that were rare and had built, over 3 weeks of mornings and meals and careful conversations, something that deserved to be called by its real name. Neither of us rushed toward anything that felt right. We had both learned separately the particular loss that comes from rushing past the feeling on the way to managing the feeling. We stayed in it instead. 3 weeks, 21 mornings of coffee and conversation. A
Beautiful
phone call
morning
I
for a
wasn't
walk.
supposed to hear, a truth
Yeah,
offered
beats being stuck
sideways, a
inside. This
question
coffee's
answered with
perfect.
one word.
Couldn't agree
The
more.
kitchen had been keeping something
How's your
warm
week
between
been?
us for weeks,
Busy,
waiting
but
for us
good.
to stop
You?
being afraid of it. We finally stopped, and what was waiting there, real and patient and entirely ours, was better than anything either of us had been careful enough to plan for. Telling my mother was not something I had planned for a Thursday morning. But life, I have found, tends to happen on its own schedule regardless of what you've planned. And my mother, Patricia Calloway, now Patricia Navarro, with the sharp eyes of a woman who has spent her career understanding how spaces fit together, had apparently been having her own private conversation with herself about what she'd been observing in her kitchen for the past 3 weeks.
This light is perfect for
She brought it
sketching.
up herself, which,
Yeah, it's
in
nice and warm.
retrospect, I should have predicted.
What are you working on?
Elliot had
Just
gone
some
for an
ideas.
early run.
I'd love to see.
Robert was at the restaurant for a morning delivery. My mother and I were alone in the kitchen that had become, over these weeks, the geographic center of everything. And she was making tea with the particular careful attention
This
she gives to
captures the
things
ending
when
I've been
she is using the
chasing.
making as cover for
The way
thinking.
these lines flow, it
You
just
seem
alive.
different lately, she said,
And
not
this
looking
one,
up from the kettle.
it evolved from a simple
Different
doodle.
how? I said,
And
which
that's when I
recognized
realized
even
I
as
had to make
said
a
it as the
change.
second time in
I
recent
never thought I'd
memory
have the
I had
courage to do
responded
it.
to that observation with that
But
question.
it turned out to be the best
Lighter,
decision.
she said, like you've put something down.
That scene with the bridge
I
was
looked at my
intense.
coffee. I've been
Yeah,
sleeping
and the
better.
score really built the tension.
Noah, her
It
voice
reminded
was
me of that
gentle
trip we
and
took,
entirely unconvinced.
the one with the
She
unexpected
set
storm.
2 mugs on the counter and
I've
finally
thought about
looked at
this
me.
carefully.
I've known you for
And I
25
believe
years.
this
I
is
know
maybe
every
the best
version
way
of your
forward.
face. That is not the face of someone
we
who
have
is
to be
sleeping
prepared for the
better.
chance.
That is the face of someone who has decided to stop pretending something isn't true. I opened my mouth, closed it. I'm not asking you to explain anything you're not ready to explain, she said. I'm just saying, whatever it is, you don't have to manage it alone. You never did. I just never knew how to make that clearer. I looked at my mother, this woman who had raised me alone, who had loved me through every difficult thing, who had never once given me a reason to be anything but fully myself with her, and yet whom I had spent 6 years partially shielding from the full picture of
wanting
who
to
I
talk.
was,
It's been on
out
my
of a
mind.
protective
I'm here
instinct
for you.
I could no
What's
longer
going on?
quite justify.
It's about us. I think
Mom,
we need
I
to
said,
be more
I'm
open.
gay.
I
She
agree.
didn't blink.
Let's
I
keep
know,
talking.
sweetheart. You what?
Sí, te escucho.
I've known since you were about 22.
No te
She
preocupes,
poured
todo
the
está
tea,
bien.
slid a mug toward me
Hablamos
with the
luego.
same
Adiós.
unhurried certainty with which she did everything. I was waiting for you to be ready. I stared at her. For 3 years you've. I didn't want to push. I wanted you to get there on your own terms. She sat down across from me. Are you okay? Have you been okay? I have been, I said, mostly better lately. She looked at me with the specific expression of a mother who is adding things up and arriving at an answer she suspected she'd reach. Better lately, she repeated. Mom, I'm not asking. You're absolutely asking. She smiled into her tea. I just want you to be happy. That's all I've ever wanted, however that looks. She looked up. Does it involve someone I know? I looked at her. She looked at me. Outside, the January morning was doing its pale, cold thing beyond the window. It's early, I said carefully. Nothing is, we haven't made any decisions or. Noah, her voice was warm and certain. You don't have to explain it to me in advance, just tell me you're okay. I'm better than okay, I said, and I meant it in a way I hadn't been able to mean it in a while. She reached across the counter and covered my hand with hers. Good, she said,
The key
then
is to stir in
everything else
slow,
will figure
gentle
itself
circles.
out.
See? Like
Elliot
this?
told his father 2
Yes,
days later.
perfect. You're a natural.
I wasn't there
Thanks.
for it.
It feels
was
right.
between them,
doing
private
great.
and necessary. But he came and found me afterward in the room I was using and sat on the edge of the bed with the expression of someone who has just climbed something significant. How did it go? I asked.
All right, try this one.
He
I think it's
cried,
perfect.
he said. Not
Come
sad
on, be
crying,
honest.
just,
Does it need anything?
he exhaled. He said he'd known
See?
since I was in college
told you
and
it
he'd
was
been
good.
waiting for me to come to him. Apparently everyone has been waiting for us to figure things out. I laughed. My mother said the same thing, word for word basically. He looked at me. We've been very carefully not telling people who already knew.
That's incredible.
Apparently.
Yeah. We
He
nailed it.
started to say
Best one yet.
something, then laughed
Definitely.
instead, genuinely,
great
the
team.
particular laugh of someone releasing a pressure they'd carried so long they'd stopped registering it as a weight. That's such a waste of energy. Welcome to every closet door ever, I said. He smiled, then quieter, he asked about us, my dad. He met my eyes, not intrusively, he just said he was glad I wasn't navigating things alone and that he liked how I'd been lately. A pause. More present, he said, more myself. You have been, I said. So have you. We looked at each other across the room.
I need you to know
The
I'm
winter
being honest.
afternoon light was low
I've been reflecting
and
on
gold, the
everything,
kind that feels like it
and I
belongs
want to
to a
make things
different
right
season.
between us.
And in it, Elliot looked like the person he'd been gradually becoming over 5 weeks, not different from the man who'd arrived with his sketchbooks and his quiet attention, but more visible, more fully himself, like a photograph that had been slightly out of focus and had finally been adjusted. Noah, he said, can I tell you what I'd like, not as a plan, not as something we have to commit to right now, just what I'd like if we're being honest with each other. Yes, I said. I'd like to take this slowly, he said. Not because I'm uncertain about what I feel, I'm not, but because I've rushed before and I've waited too long before, and I think what this deserves is neither of those things. I think it deserves to be built deliberately. Does that make sense? That makes a lot of sense, I said. I'd like to keep talking, he said, and keep cooking because apparently we're both better in a kitchen than in a formal conversation. And I'd like to figure out together what comes next, the logistics, the family stuff, all of it, without letting any of that become a reason not to try. The logistics of a stepbrother situation, I said carefully. We don't have that history, he said. We met as adults. We became family by paperwork 5
I know
months
things
ago.
have been
I don't
tough.
think either of
How
us
are
should
you,
let a
really?
technicality be the
I'm
reason
okay,
we
Mom.
don't pursue
Just needed
something
some time.
real. He held
I'm
my
always
gaze
here for you.
steadily. But I want to
I
know
know.
how you
Thanks,
feel
Mom.
about it, honestly. I thought
I've
about
been
it
waiting for
genuinely,
you.
without the automatic reassurances
good
I
to see you,
sometimes
son.
deployed to smooth over complexity.
You
I
were
thought
worth the
about what we
wait.
were to each other, what we had actually been to each other. Two strangers thrown together by the love of two other people who had spent 5 weeks choosing to see each other clearly. The family connection was real in legal terms.
I'm
But
here for
love,
you,
real,
always.
daily, chosen love, was
We'll
also a
get
kind
through
of
this
family.
together.
And the family I
I
felt in
love
this
you.
room was the kind built by choice, not paperwork.
It's
I
been a
think,
while.
I said
How
slowly,
have you
that
been?
the most
I've been
important
good, just
family
busy.
is the kind you
And you?
build on purpose.
Same
And I
here.
think what's
But
happening
nights like
between
this
us is
make it
being
worthwhile.
built on
They
purpose
really do.
every morning, one honest
I found them.
conversation at a
They're
time.
safe.
I looked at
They've
him.
been waiting
I'm
for
not
you.
worried about the technicality. I'm paying attention to what's real. He nodded. Something in him settled that visible
so much
release of
lighter
held
now.
breath that I'd come to recognize as the most honest signal of how he actually felt about something. Okay, he said, me too. My
I'm proud of you,
apartment's heating
son.
was fixed in
Truly.
early February.
Thanks, Dad.
I
That
did
means
not
a
move
lot.
back immediately.
Just wanted you to know.
My mother didn't ask
I
why.
appreciate it.
Robert didn't
Really.
ask why. The house simply continued with its kitchen and its mornings and its gradual understanding of itself as a space where two additional people were figuring out something important, and nobody rushed the process.
Let me explain why this is so
I
exciting.
moved
It's
back
not
to
just
my
the idea
apartment
itself,
in
but the
late
potential it
February,
unlocks
6
for all of
weeks
us.
after the heating was
Imagine the
fixed.
possibilities. We
By
can
then,
build something
Elliot had
truly that's
signed
the
a
heart of it,
contract
and
with
I
a
can't wait to dive
landscape
deeper.
architecture firm in the city, not the one from Portland, something new, something that was his rather than a continuation, and had found an apartment 12 minutes from mine. We had dinner together the night he got the keys
Cold one
to
tonight?
his new place.
Yeah,
At his
you can see
father's
it in our
restaurant,
breath.
which felt right, the
Look at
place
the
where
lights
this had
coming
all
on.
tangentially
Beautiful
begun,
time of
where
day.
I had met him over a menu and a
We need
handshake
to
and a
talk about
comment
this
about
now.
character.
All right, what is
Robert made us
It's
the
about the
tasting
deal.
menu.
It could fall
all
apart.
Of it.
What?
Course after course
How?
of food that
The terms
tasted like
changed.
attention
We
and
need a new
care,
plan.
and at the end he
I
came
wanna
and
be
sat
honest
with
with
us
you.
and had a glass
This
of
is something
wine
I've
and
thought
said
about
nothing in
carefully.
particular about anything.
It's not
just
an easy
sat with us
decision,
in
but
the
I
warm
believe
restaurant
it's the
light,
right one.
His presence a kind of benediction,
And I hope you can see
easy
that.
and complete. Elliot walked me to my car afterward. The February night was cold, but the city smelled like the first distant suggestion of spring, something damp and ready
I've weighed
underneath
the risks.
cold,
We
a promise
proceed.
the season was
It's not that
yet
simple.
keeping
What about
but had
fallout?
begun to make.
We'll handle it.
Thank
Trust
you for
me.
tonight, I said.
All right.
Thank
I'm
you
in.
for
Let's do it.
January, he said, which was such a precise and Elliot way to say something that I laughed. January, I said, 6 weeks of kitchen mornings and you thank me for the whole month. It was a significant month. It was, I agreed. He was standing close, not invading the distance between us, just occupying his own space in a way that was near enough to feel. His
Beautiful
breath was
morning for a
visible in the
walk.
cold air. His
It
amber
is.
eyes
So
were
peaceful.
doing the warm thing they
Look at
did
the
in
buds on the
certain lights.
trees.
I
Spring's
know
almost
we
here.
said slowly, he said. I'm still committed to slowly, but I want to be clear about what I'm being slow toward so there's no ambiguity. Okay, I said. I want this to be something, he said. Not something vague, something specific, you and me figuring out what that looks like, taking the time it needs to take. He held my gaze with the steady directness that was the most him thing about him. I want to build
Look at
something
this
with
lot.
you, Noah,
Barren,
deliberately,
but
the
full
way
of
you make
potential.
bread or
My
grow a
plans will
garden,
bring
not
life
rushed,
here,
but
a
not
community
pretended
hub.
away either.
Imagine the
I looked at him
possibilities.
for a moment.
This is just the
The city
beginning.
moved around us in
See
its
the elevation
ordinary
here?
nighttime
This adjusts for the
way,
slope.
cars
Right.
and distant
That solves the
voices
drainage
and the
issue.
particular
Exactly.
freedom of a
We can start
street that
foundation
doesn't
work next
know
week.
or care
Perfect.
about the
Let's walk the
significance
perimeter.
of what is happening on its sidewalk. I make pretty good bread, I said. I know, he said. I've eaten it every morning for 6 weeks. And I've drunk your coffee every morning for 6 weeks.
What if we
So
curve
we
this edge
already know
here?
we work,
It
he
softens
said,
the
a
overall
slight
look.
smile. The rest
Yeah, I
is
see
just
it.
details.
That could work well.
The rest, I said,
Exactly.
is everything.
Let's prototype it and see.
Yeah, he said, and I'm here for all of it. Spring came. His landscape project broke ground in March, a half-acre green space in a neighborhood that had not had trees in 40 years. I went to the groundbreaking. He showed me the plans afterward over dinner, the specific vision he had for it, how the space would be oriented toward the afternoon light, what would grow where and why. He talked about it with the same quiet passion he'd shown me that first morning over his sketchbooks, except now he talked about it freely, without monitoring himself. I was redesigning a brand identity for a new client, a small food company, and he sat with me some evenings while I worked and offered thoughts that were spatial and structural in a way that came from seeing the world as a landscape architect. And somehow his perspective kept unlocking things
I'm
in my
so glad we
designs
could all
that I
be
hadn't
here.
found on my own.
Me too. This
We
feels
fit in
right.
that way, not
It really
because
does.
we were the
We
same,
found our rhythm.
we weren't in personality
family,
or
found and
approach or
made.
the specific shape of our
So I
attention.
told him, you
But the
can't just wing
differences
it.
were the kind that
Oh,
made
that's
a shared
perfect.
space richer
Right?
rather than
It gets
harder
better.
to navigate.
I can't wait. You're
Told
Chickles.
people
You're the
gradually.
best.
Friends
Only
first,
for
then
you.
colleagues, then the wider circles of our
I
lives.
can't believe you
The
did
responses were
that.
various and
That
human.
is just
Some
too
people effortlessly
funny.
accepting, some
Your
requiring
reaction is
them
the
to
best
adjust,
part.
all of them ultimately
I
decent.
can't
We
stop.
had the family
I wouldn't
structure
want you to.
conversation with a few people who raised it and handled it with the honesty it deserved. 2 adult men who had met as strangers and built something real, and whose parents' happiness had been the unlikely door through which they'd found each other. Not a complication, just a story. One Sunday in May, we were at his father's restaurant after closing, Elliot and Robert and my mother and me. The 4 of us around a table with leftover wine
wanted to
and the
talk. It's about
remains
the
of
family.
whatever Robert had made that
listening.
evening,
Go on.
which was always
think
excellent
it's
and
time for a
always
change.
varied and
I'm with
always
you.
tasted like someone
Whatever
who
you need.
loved feeding people. My mother
This is
was
wonderful,
laughing at something
being together
Robert
like
had
this.
said.
It truly
Robert
is
was
so much
watching
to be
her
thankful
laugh with
for.
the expression
Absolutely.
of a man who
To
has found the
family.
thing he spent his
To
life
us.
looking for and has not yet gotten over the fact of it.
To this
The
moment,
restaurant was
to
quiet
happiness,
around us,
and to
the city
all of you.
visible through
Cheers.
the window, the night doing its ordinary thing outside. I looked at Elliot across the table. He was
The
looking
place
at his
looks nice
father
and
looking
warm.
at my mother,
Yeah,
and
perfect
his
night for it.
expression
Ready?
was something I hadn't
Definitely.
seen him wear
Let's go.
before.
Cool.
Not the patient
Smells good
calm,
already.
not the careful
After you.
honesty, not the private smile, something more
Nice
open
night.
than
Glad
all
we
of
stopped.
those, something
Yeah,
that
it's
looked
perfect
like
out here.
gratitude.
Reminds me of
He
home.
felt my gaze and
You
turned
miss it?
to meet it.
Sometimes.
What? He
But
said
this is
quietly
good.
so only I
Yeah, it
could
is.
hear. Nothing, I
I've thought
said,
about this
just
long and
looking.
hard.
He
What I
held
say
my
now
gaze
is
for a moment.
entirely what I
Then,
might mean.
You do that a lot,
This
I don't
moment,
look.
under the spring night
I'm a
sky,
designer, I said.
feels like the
I
right
notice
time
how
to
things
share it.
fit together.
It's
And
real.
how do things fit together?
trust
He
this.
asked, a quiet smile warm.
Good things are here to
I
stay.
looked at the table, my mother and his
Let
father,
them in.
the wine and the good food, the city outside, the man across from me who had arrived in my life through a door nobody planned and built something with me that was deliberate and real and ours. Pretty well, I said. I think they fit together pretty well. He smiled, the full one, the real one, the one I'd been cataloging since a dinner at a restaurant months ago and had finally stopped pretending I wasn't
That was a
cataloging.
wonderful meal.
Outside, the May
It
night
really
was
was.
warm.
We should do this more
The
often.
city breathed and moved.
I'm glad we could
Spring
all
had
be
kept
here.
its promise.
Me too.
And
Feels
in a restaurant
perfect.
that smelled
I love
like
these
garlic
nights. It
and
feels
good
like
wine
home.
and the
It's the
specific
company that makes it
satisfaction of
special.
something
The
made
food
with
is
care.
amazing,
The
too.
4 of us
And the
sat
conversation.
together and were,
It's
in the
perfect.
truest
To many
sense
more.
of the word,
Cheers to that,
exactly
definitely.
where we were supposed to be.
It's so good
It
to be
started
here
in a
with you
kitchen,
all.
with coffee made without
I know.
being
It
asked and
feels so
eyes that
real
held
and right.
something neither of us was ready
To
to
us, then.
name. It grew in the slow, deliberate
us.
way that real things grow, not rushed, not forced, but tended. What we built together was not complicated. It was just honest. And honesty, I have learned, is the only foundation worth building anything permanent on. The kitchen is still where we make sense of things, where we talk and cook and figure out what we're becoming. Some things stay constant even when everything else changes. I wouldn't have it any other way.